How's everyone doing? Been a while. I gratefully have been super busy. Seems that gratitude is the trick here. If we can stay in gratitude in any given moment and think about what we have, um, life just seems really, really good. And of course, I'm not perfect at that. However, it does seem to be the case. Like even when I'm having trouble with my son, I just stop, take a breath, and think about all the stuff he does do, not focus on what he doesn't or where he falls short. And it really helps me and our relationship. He's becoming a teenager and, going through emotions and all the stuff that comes with that. And, just challenging himself, growing into a man. And it's an experience. It's a ride for sure. Dealing with some new territory and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, got a few things today on the docket. One is this story, and I can't seem to find it anywhere for some reason. However, it was a story I came across, a little short parable type story of this guy like seeks out this guru, quote unquote guru, and he goes and he finds the guy and he's like sitting in this empty house. And the guy's, the follower of the guru or the seeker of the guru, walks in and he's like, Guru, where's all your furniture? And the guru's sitting on the floor and he's like, how are you supposed to entertain guests, excuse me. And the guru basically replies to him that, he's only a guest here too. So in other words, like, why would he have furniture in this space? He's just like has a roof over his head and he's just a visitor too. He's just passing through. And, I'm not saying not to enjoy life and some of the stuff here. However, it isn't what it's about. And I've kind of just always lived my life that way. Like, as a kid, I remember I didn't even want to get my license, a car, none of that stuff, because it was like it came with all these bills and responsibilities. And if I could just get rides, then I didn't care. Like, I've just not been the type that you're going to fall in love with me or like me or whatever for anything that I have. I've kind of avoided that to some extent. Not that I have nothing, it's just not important to me, and nor is your Lamborghini or whatever important to me either. Like, it doesn't impress me generally, and honestly, it's often a clue that you're maybe have done some evil stuff. Not always the case, I know that. Just so and that being said, it kind of goes into the main topic for today that I decided I was going to make a video about, which is something that's been really coming up for me a lot lately, and I definitely probably have talked about this before. However, repetition is the key to learning. So I would say that the Bible, from what I can tell, is a timeless piece of literature that gives very clear guidelines of how to live one way or the other, whether like in heaven with God or in hell without God. And what I mean by that is, like, I'll use the example of, Eve in Genesis. She fell to temptation, right? And she and Adam were living in the Garden of Eden in paradise. They had everything they wanted except for this one tree. And that lower self comes in and is like, just taste it. Just taste it. You can be like God. Da, 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 da. And it's like, the same as the devil who wanted to be God and ended up being cast out of heaven, out of paradise, to rule over the material or whatever the story is exactly. Essentially living without God and being in hell, the ruler of hell, the living in that domain, which to me is living without God, thinking that I know better than God, that, I've been doing this law stuff for a long time, these legal processes, these status correction processes. And, for a long time, I kept trying to pay somebody to help me or to do it or whatever. And it was like I kept getting, wasting my money. They wouldn't show up. They wouldn't know any more than I did or less sometimes. None of their process was actually based from anything I found in law or that they could show me in statutes, codes, and anything, really. I don't know even where some of these processes are coming from, like all these different color inks. I've never seen any evidence of that. Certain ones make sense to me, like, we used to sign in blood, right? That's red. That makes sense. You have to be a living man for that to happen. And Anyways, the point is what kept coming to me was having to do it myself. Like, this is something you need to do yourself. And God kept like giving me these lessons, and I'm just like, no, I'm going to find somebody. Kept fighting that. And when I finally gave in and just sat down at my computer and started reading, started researching and doing the stuff that I didn't necessarily want to do, but God kept showing me over and over with these lessons, like, no, you're going to do this on your own. Might be some guidance here and there, and some messages I get mentally, random thoughts, whatever we want to call those, messages from a greater source than us, of a question to ask or somewhere to look, and we go and we search that and we find what we're looking for, and but generally, yeah, that's about like the extent of it. And the more I fight the way things are, nature, whatever, the more I live in hell, the more I feel like I'm terrible, like I hate myself, like all those same feelings that come with a lot of what you're going through. Like if you were born a girl and you are fighting it and think you're a boy, and like you just have this inner anguish. Obviously, I've seen it over and over. Like these people scream and yell and they get so angry, and somebody at peace doesn't do that. Somebody with God doesn't do that, doesn't behave that way. So the story of the devil falling from heaven by fighting God, the story of Eve and Adam losing paradise, heaven, because of that sickness of that sickness of not just obeying God, of doing God's will. The Bible really, really lays out how you can live and what choices to make in order to live with God. And what I mean by that is, even in your real life, like if something keeps presenting itself, it's something you need to face. If you keep getting these messages of, time you need to fast, and you keep fighting it, you're probably going to end up sick in some way. You got it. Like right now, that's an example. I'm fighting right now. Like I just keep making excuses for not finding the time, or taking the time to fast, or I'm raising a son, and when am I gonna do that, and how am I gonna, whatever, blah blah blah, all the noise, right? Excuse me, of keeping us from our true power, from the power of God. And that to me is mapped out throughout the Bible from beginning to end, Old Testament, New Testament. It is very simple. It is black and white, and there is God's way and there is not God's way. And God's way is what keeps being presented to you, and that voice you ignore, and that ignoring that feeling in your heart and your gut and your soul, and chasing the next Ferris wheel, the next potato chip, the next whatever, is going to definitely lead you down a dark path. Now, I've said in the past, like I do have the feeling that it all leads to God either way. It's just, which way do you want to live? Like, do you want to live in hell, suffering, feeling this lack of God, this loss, this disconnection, this void? Or do you want to feel how I've definitely come to feel, which is generally fullness and peace and calmness and joy, and literally living in gratitude and acceptance? So, read the Bible. It's mind-blowing, and it's like people have said, it's a living being in itself. In other words, like when you read it, it's you might not even comprehend it. I certainly don't comprehend a lot of it, and it gives me this new clarity on life. And what it really is just a timeless story of examples, of symbols, of archetypes. And it just makes it very clear that living with God and doing what God keeps presenting to you, whether it's writing a paper, reading a book, exercising, and it just keeps coming up from different people walking into your life, like, oh, you should exercise, oh, you should write a book. Where's that coming from? That's literally God. And then, like, in my life, I've been guilty of making excuses. I've never done that before. I don't know how to do it. Well, okay, so learn, just learn. Like, the first person who ever wrote a book didn't have some way to know how to write a book, right? First person that exercised didn't know they were exercising. Me, silly examples, but I think you get my point. Is sometimes it's just doing it, and doing it your way, whatever that way is, in a sense of like your own authentic way. And I'm somebody who, doesn't necessarily get into scientific stuff or whatever necessarily. I tend to follow logic and reason and my heart and just simple information of this realm, of the way it works. Like, during all that 2020 stuff and a few years, whatever. It just, the fact is, whatever you're wearing on your face isn't going to stop these things from happening. Unless we're going to walk around in hazmat suits and seal our houses and have like filtered air in there. And, it's just silly. It was just not logical how it was handled. You can feel how you want to feel. And then people got these shots and they're still wearing these things on their face. And it's like, how does any of that make sense? If this thing works, then you shouldn't worry about what I'm doing. And for me, it was just came down to autonomy, and I think it's very clear in the Bible and in ancient mystery schools and scriptures, different traditions, Bible or not, of, autonomy and living with God. And that's what it comes down to for me, is like, I'm going to live how I want to live. You're welcome to live how you want to live. We're supposed to do our best to do no harm. I know that's unrealistic. I mean, even walking on the grass, right? We're hurting the grass, theoretically. Excuse me. So, I just wanted to jump on here. This one, hopefully, I pray it wasn't going to be too long. I put a few long ones out there recently. And it's really just getting into the Bible has changed my life. And it really does show me that all my feelings in my heart are very true. Like, if you live for the community, living for God, we create a better world. If you live for yourself, white magic versus black magic, then you don't create a better world. You create maybe a better world for yourself, but not really, because like if you live where you may be reincarnated and have to come back here, are you going to be happy with the world you left behind that you have to come back and live in now? Imagine if it works that way. Marty Leeds just, made that notion, and it really clicked and vibed with me. It's like, living for 7 generations, that also might mean, when you get reincarnated into another body, like, you might have to suffer the consequences of how you lived and what you didn't do in your body last time. And that's pretty significant when you think about it. And if you are a selfish person, that should even get through to you, But for me, it's like, the stories of don't get divorced, and, it's clear as day what leads to separation of families, breaking things up. A lot of my stuff came from my own logic, my own heart, my own following, my own reason pathways. And I didn't have like evidence per se. And now reading the Bible more and more, it's like clear as day that this isn't coming from me. It's literally just from observing nature, observing human behavior, observing psychology, observing thought processes. And so when, we are out of balance, when we fight God, when we fight nature, when we fight creation, things get out of whack, and it's clearly happening, right? And if God loved us, God probably loves us unconditionally, like will always accept us back if we repent and behave a certain way. However, if God truly liked us unconditionally and agreed with us unconditionally, then Sodom and Gomorrah wouldn't have happened, Babylon wouldn't have happened, Noah and the flood wouldn't have happened, Jesus wouldn't have had to come to tell us how to live, retrain us, reteach us. So when you think about this kind of stuff, like, no, your behavior isn't always okay. No, God doesn't always like what you're doing. He might always love you and accept you, when you ask for forgiveness and live in repentance, but as long as you're going to say I'm sorry but keep living how you're living, or know that what you're doing is quote unquote wrong, we wouldn't even have these words wrong and right if there wasn't a wrong and right. And while we can make lemonade out of lemons and alchemize toxicity into gold, it doesn't make certain behaviors right, like molesting children or hurting little kids or resorting to fighting people when you don't need to. So I just really feel like we all need to start realizing that there is different ways to live here, selfless versus selfish, living for the community. Like there's been times in my life where I turned down business because they already had somebody they were doing business with. And I'm like, no, stay loyal, stay true, stay with that other person. I have been like, I don't mess with people's wives, whether they come at me or not, or whatever it is. Even sometimes women who have kids with other men that they left, and it's like, because a sin. And I get why that's a sin. It messes with the kids. It messes with the other man. It's like, if you're truly a man of the community, you would never pursue somebody's wife. If you're truly a woman of God in the community, you would never pursue somebody's husband. You would never want to hurt any of your brothers or sisters. You would never want to be a part of that. And so, like, we're living in this weird time, in this weird world. Not that it hasn't been before and won't be again. It's just, and it's probably been the whole time. And there's people who live with God, live with Jesus, live with Christ, live with Buddha, live with that way of life where you live for the community. And, it's like, I'm not a communist. However, I get why people fall for it, because we have this inner sense of community. Communityism is very different, and it doesn't have, a caste system, an elite system where certain people have a lot and other people don't. Like, a truly good leader would be the one living in the shack while, all their people lived in mansions. Not literally maybe, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, you're going to do what's best for everybody, knowing that your number's up any second, any day, any time, as soon as God says. And so, why be selfish? Why be greedy? Do your best to make a beautiful kingdom. And, that's the goal to me. That's what it says in the Bible. That's what it teaches us. And so, if you ever want to know if you're on, like, the narrow path, the righteous path, the quote-unquote right path with Christ, with God, with the community, with white magic, go read the Bible. Go meditate, go sit alone and think. Are you actually thinking about others? Or are you just thinking about yourself? Like, all these people out here, men and women, like, well, I just need to be happy. It's my life. I only get one life. What if you don't only get one life and you got to come back here and face what you did? Maybe you're going to be born into the broken family you broke 7 generations ago. And you have to come and right it, maybe. Like, maybe, I don't know if that's why I'm so, strong about my family and all that, but are focused on my son. I don't know. It's, these are like theories right now and speculation, but I just, the Bible is the way of life. It's not a way, it's the way. And it's making it very clear. And, you know what to do. You know what the hard thing is often and the right thing. It's, exercising, letting the pain happen up front so you get the reward later. Or you can get the reward right now and feel like crap shortly after, and, getting that cycle. So anyways, I think that's about it. I love you all. I really hope I pray that you think about what I'm saying, I know it's not always easy. However, you do know what you need to do. And I pray that you and I and all of us have the courage and strength and faith and knowledge and wisdom to behave in a way that is for the community, that is for the greater good of those around us. If you're having trouble in your marriage, you need to stick it out. You need to work it out. You made a commitment. It's about keeping your word, your oath, your honor. If there's nothing horrible going on, cheating, beating, and all that, which again says in the Bible, if that's happening, okay, like, I get it. You can do what you need to. Otherwise, you need to figure it out. You need to work it out for your kids, for the community, for the future generations. Even like, I always bring up my ex, and it's like, she's starting to say she knows some of this stuff, but she's still making excuses for why she needs to stay with this guy. But she keeps getting these messages. She knows she needs to be alone, and did go the wrong way and fell to temptation. She's admitting all this, but still living and behaving exactly the same way. So, this is what I'm talking about. And it's like, not for judgment. It is a process, right? So sometimes these things come, and then it takes some time for us to gain the courage to do what we know we need to. And I don't know that she ever will. This isn't an attack on her or any, like, we all have our journey. And, most of us will probably be back around having to deal with all this all over again. So read the Bible. Check it out. If you're not somebody who just naturally is able to look at nature and the world around you and see, like, clear as day what it would do to your kids if, like, internally, spiritually, psychologically, if you weren't, like, if you have multiple moms, multiple dads, there's going to create a lot of animosity, a lot of issues, very often, more often than not. Like, in my house, I didn't know my dad, so, like, the men that were around, oh, you're not his dad, and so I got away with a lot of stuff. And if men tried to step in, my mom would be like, just leave him alone. And like, that she was famous for that, as far as, like, leaving me alone. Literally as long as I didn't bother her, that was the only rule, just stay out of her way, out of her life. So yeah, it's it's not healthy, I don't think, and I'm grateful that I've gotten to where I've gotten, and that God saved my soul, and I was coded with right and wrong very, very clearly from an early age, and yeah, I went down some weird paths and done some really weird stuff and not right stuff. However, I've always been able to be honest and authentic and admitting and doing my best to fairly rapidly never do those things again. So yeah, I pray for all of you that we all gain the courage to live the righteous path, to be courageous, to do what's tough in this place, or seemingly. And this place really could be beautiful, and it is beautiful, just it could be more of a community and more neighborly if we were all a lot less selfish. So, something to think about. TheLivingMysteryChurch.org. I love you all. Peace be with you. TheLivingMysteryChurch.org if you want to chat. Peace.